Fairphone and 成亚 Resources Technology， 我们将会邀请到英国标准协会、澳洲办事处商务处以及荷兰 FairPhone、成亚资源科技等等代表，以多面向的方式带大家一起来探讨循环经济模式。Today we have a total of 4 speakers and each will give a 15 minutes pre-recorded presentation. All of the presentations will be in English with Chinese subtitles, and all of them will be joining us real time for discussions as well as their representatives. So please feel free to leave your questions and comments at the QA area as a panelist, and we'll be answer all of your questions at the final section. 今天的讲者呢，每一位将有15分钟预录的演讲，演讲将会以英语进行，配上中文的字幕。待会我们在3点多的时候会有中场休息时间，休息完之后回来我们就会进行 Q&A 的问答讨论，所以欢迎大家现在可以在我们的 Q&A 区帮我们以 panelist 留言，稍后休息回来我们就会进行讨论。And next we would like to invite Representative Organizer Ms. Betty Hu, the Deputy Director General of Small and Medium Enterprise Administration from MOEA for our opening remark. 接着我们要邀请主办单位代表，也就是经济部中小企业处的副处长吴贝蒂副处长，帮我们做致辞，欢迎。
今天非常高兴透过线上会议的形式，邀请英国标准协会的代表以及落实循环经济的国内外业者一同与会，来分享企业如何运用循环经济标准，建立并且拓展新的营运模式。随着全球对于永续发展的重视，循环经济已经成为各国与企业的关注焦点。2015年的时候，联合国依据17项永续发展目标，呼吁全球的政府与企业应该要落实并推动永续发展，追求经济成长的同时，也要兼顾环境与社会的同步成长。我国也在2017年的时候，将循环经济纳入5+2产业发展计划中，宣示向循环经济迈进的决心，即可透过循环创新的思维，带来永续经营的新契机，并发展出新兴商业模式。为了有效导入循环经济的概念与架构，相关的国际标准就成为企业重要的依循的规念。例如，国际循环经济标准指南 BS8001 为全球第一个实践循环经济原则的国际标准，引导企业建构成熟的循环经济模式，也是协助企业提升营运绩效，或者如摇篮到摇篮的认证，广受国际的认可，鼓励企业从产品设计的开始就思考如何对人类及自然带来正面的影响。这些对于企业在供应链管理及建立绿色营运模式上，皆是一项重要的工具与参考的指标。以往高碳排放的褐色经济建立在消耗环境资源的基础之上，但因应永续发展的新浪潮，也已逐步迈向循环的绿色经济，从传统的线性经济转变为循环经济，创新扮演重要的关键因子。相信我国中小企业在落实循环经济、技术创新、企业营运创新上已有相当的经验。当然，除了政府的持续推动外，中小企业的循环观念建立与实践亦是重要的一环。期望透过今日研讨会，探讨国际循环经济标准，以及分享国内外企业落实循环经济的营运经验，使台湾的中小企业能在多重的启发下，创造更多的循环经济商机。
Remarks, we'd like to thank Ms. Betty Hu for her opening remarks and comments and suggestions. 我们要非常谢谢胡副处长这次花时间来让我们做这个开场致辞。Welcome everyone back to the seminar. 欢迎大家回到我们的研讨会现场。Our first speaker is the Global Head of Sustainability and Circular Economy at British Standard Institute. Their BS 8001 is the first practical framework and guidance of its kind for organizations to implement the principles of the circular economy. BSI 在2017年的时候就发布了全球第一个组织内部推动循环经济架构的标准，这让企业在推动过程中可以更有方向的达到符合规划的商业模式。马上来观赏来自英国标准协会 BSI 可持续发展与循环经济全球负责人 Martin Townsend 的演讲内容。
Hello, and thank you to the Ministry of Economic Affairs to allow me to speak today at this online event. For me, the topic of circularity, circular economy, however you want to phrase it, is perhaps one of the most exciting things we're seeing in the industry at the moment for so many different ways. It's an agenda which I think brings a lot to the table and it allows organisations of different size to really drive change. It's going to impact us at a personal perspective, a personal level, as well as a commercial level as well, challenging us to move away from our existing model of take, make, use, dispose, to one that drives real change and commercial success for all businesses of all size, with the lowest possible impact as you start to use the principles of circularity. In this conversation throughout the webinar today, throughout this event today, you're going to hear many different perspectives. But what's important to remember is the benefits, the opportunities of circularity don't sit alone. You need to add to the mix the other kind of market drivers that are going on around us as well. So when you add things like IoT, you have a powerful combination which helps us to move from this product to service to experience economy, which is, I think, when this agenda really comes alive, making us really think and really challenging ourselves in terms of what we can do to drive the change, supported by standards to help us on this agenda. My name is Martin Townsend. I am the Global Head of Sustainability and Circular Economy at BSI. I hope you know BSI already as the organisation that writes some of the foremost standards around sustainability, but also helping all sectors in all different ways. At the end of the day, our standards are market best practice. It's new knowledge to the market, and we are here to help and support you regardless of size, regardless of sectors. When you add those standards to our assurance solutions, which bring transparency and confidence to the user and to the wider market, it's a very powerful combination. So I'm looking forward to speaking in more depth with you. So let's get on with the presentation. I want to put a lot into the next 15 minutes. I think just talking about 8001 without setting the context would leave you wanting, I suppose, in terms of understanding how it can help you. So I want to cover a number of issues in the next few minutes or so. I want to talk about a changing world and how that looks in terms of all the sectors, I suppose, which make up the world we live in. So what does Industry 4.0 look like as we move forward? I want to reflect a little bit in terms of how the world has moved from an extraction to a product to a service economy, and in that process, I suppose, the experience economy, I suppose, which is the next in that journey. How we need to really drive market transformation, and what point and where do we need to make these interventions when we start to think about circularity. A little reflection point then on how BSI's philosophy is shaping that agenda. And then to end, I really want to kind of spend some time talking about 8001, which is, I know, fundamental to what you want to hear from me. But most important to share with you now, I don't want this to just be a monologue. It's very easy with webinars for it just to be individuals talking to you for a set period of time. If we're going to make the industry change, if we're going to help rethink our products and our services in a changing world, we need to have more active conversations. And so on my last slide, I have put my email address, and I hope I can help you. I hope you can help me understand what changes we need to see as the markets are moving. So all of that in the next few minutes. So where to start? And I mentioned just a few seconds ago about Industry 4.0. Different countries have been through this cycle of innovation or change, I suppose. But it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We are seeing a radical change at the moment. We have seen very labour-intensive, very resource-intensive processes. We've seen how that has changed in terms of modern production lines, how industries have changed with the very low-tech sort of communications that happened in centuries ago. And then when we think about the 1970s, we think about digital manufacturing, we think about electronic and digital production and digital machines in the 70s. That now seems very old hat to where we are today. And so it doesn't matter which industry you sit in, we are seeing machine learning and AI, smart factories, the Internet of Things, the use of big data really taking over our philosophy. And I think that is important just to share because that sets the context. As we are a much more digital world now, circularity sits really well within that process. There was a greater level of transparency. Consumers now can look and understand what is the product they want to buy at the consumer level. Businesses are asking more information based on feedback, understanding what is a good product, what is a good service that we have. And so this Industry 4.0 that we live in today is really fundamental in terms of making circularity mature and driving change in our marketplaces. And if I try and summarize that last slide down, we've gone through a process of change in terms of extraction and creating products to now creating products and services. And I think circularity is so important in sitting in that space. And if I give you a couple of examples just to kind of tease you with what I mean, I've worked in many industries in my working career. And what I'm seeing more and more is that organizations now don't sell things such as roofing products, they sell water tightness. How can you make sure that a building is watertight? And actually within those products that will make up that membrane, you put chips which will sense the change in moisture. That can give information about when that material was laid, who it was laid by. And so you can then start to actually improve your products based around that feedback loop. Other examples, we don't necessarily have lighting systems, we just sell lighting levels within a building. And that includes things like circadian lighting to make sure that there is a strong relationship between the people in the building and their productivity. You don't sell HVAC systems, you sell temperature. And that is part of this experience economy. How do you make the consumer, the occupier, the individuals within a building more productive? How do you make sure that you're thinking about your profits and those business models you create? How do you commoditize that relationship between a product and service? And this conversation has really been very much down to individual leaders shaping and changing certain organizations, but we're now in a different world in the sense that in a post-COVID world, we need to think about how we are driving change. How do we make sure that our profit margins are healthy for us as an organization to survive? How do we ensure efficiency in organization performance? How do we get closer to the client to make sure that they want to come back again and again and again because we're providing the right service for them at the right time, a service that they really appreciate, and it's one that they want to repeat. If we're looking at market transformation, circularity really sits in that space around market transformation and business performance, and that's where we are today. And the most important thing to share here, I suppose, is when we think about circularity, it is about making sure that we design our products, our services with it in mind. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the principles later on. But how we design a product, how we think about it, how we make sure it's repairable, how we make sure that it can be broken down or reused if it comes to its end of life, that needs to be considered right at the planning phase, right at the design phase, because the longer you leave that process, the higher the costs. So this is a change of business philosophy. It's a change in the way we design, the way we work, and that applies to all sectors across the world. So let me just kind of put this in the frame from a BSI perspective. We work in all sectors. And with regards to sustainability and the work that we do around circularity, how do we make sure that we achieve low cost, we achieve low impact, we make sure that we're supporting that market transformation, which we talked about just a few moments ago. And in that process, for me, from a BSI perspective, there are 5 fundamental things which we try to do as we develop our standards, as we look at our assurance solutions, as we work with you to improve your business. And you can see those on the screen, but let me just walk you through those. BSI as a standards organization has a great wealth of knowledge that we tap into. Our committees are made up of leading experts across the world to write our standards to help you as a business improve. And it's about taking that industry knowledge, taking that industry science and using it responsibly to create best practice, to create standards which will really help people improve. Fundamental to driving change is about making sure that we have within businesses good governance. As I mentioned earlier on in this conversation, things are changing. The world is changing, and transparency, accountability of organizations is becoming paramount, and people are becoming much more aware of the role of good governance in terms of ensuring businesses survive. Assurance, the way we audit against set standards, is fundamental to making sure that we have confidence, the consumer has confidence, that the clients that you provide your products and services to has confidence. Equally important in this process of change is if we are making sure that we're creating good products and services, it is about economic success. Quite often conversations about sustainability and circularity are often seen to be green conversations or greenwash. This is about making sure that we can really ensure businesses grow economically successful, because if they are economically successful, they can ensure that those profits can go back into good design and good products and supporting clients to improve. And then at the top of that diagram that you see in front of you, it's about making sure that we share best practice. We create a healthy and just society by making sure that that knowledge is shared well. And the net result of that is making sure that we reduce the impact on the environment. If we look at many sectors across the world, they're great consumers of raw material, yet we don't have endless limits in terms of the resources within our world. So how do we make sure that we really allow those resources to be used for future generations? We use them sparingly in the right way. And those fundamental principles underpin many of our standards. So let's talk about 8001. The first thing to share with you, I suppose, is the fact that not all standards are equal. So some of our standards are guides, some of our standards are specifications, and they all work in different ways across a business landscape. So I just wanted to share that with you a little bit. So 8001 sits in the guide category, and it's really good at helping businesses understand the fundamental principles that they need to be considering as part of business change. I've also included a couple of other examples on this slide just to kind of give you some context. So you're probably very aware of 14001, which was a standard produced by BSI. And I see it to be a thematic. I see it to be one working around a theme, and that theme is environmental management. And if we look at practical applications, BS 2012-1 is another good example of where we've written standards which are really driving change in terms of how business improve. 2012-1 is about sustainable events. How can businesses ensure that they're running an event that is sustainable? and they all work in different ways. But 8001 is a really good conversation with C-suite, with senior people in an organization to embed principles in terms of how that organization can be sustainable and successful. If I look at some of the principles of the circular economy, which is all included in the standard, there's a couple that I just really wanted to tease out, just to kind of share with you to help you understand some of the things that 8001 will help you achieve. Innovation, it comes back to that point. If we are going to improve as across the world, I suppose, but improve for you as a business, it's about supporting innovation, constantly looking at your product, looking at your service, and understand what you can do to improve. How can you make sure that the components are reusable? How can you make sure your supply chains use those products in the most effective way? And in that, it is about collaboration, making sure that you, the product manufacturer, you working with your client to understand their needs and their supply chains, ensuring that that process of collaboration is fundamental and at the foremost sort of thought in your mind. Transparency, and as we talked about a few moments ago, transparency is key here in terms of ensuring that you understand your product, you understand how it can be reused, recycled. And in this process, how do I optimize the value in terms of what I'm doing in terms of that supply chain on my client? How do I make sure they get value for money in the best possible way? And circularity has many, many thoughts that basically bring it together, and you'll see this in 8001, the document. Each one of those bubbles is an hour-long lecture in its own right, and I'm more than happy to kind of talk to anybody who wants to listen about how we can really drive some of this thinking in terms of, it might be cascade systems, it might be about biomimicry, it might be about understanding in terms of cradle to cradle or redesigning in terms of regenerative design. All of those are incredibly powerful tools which 8001 looks to try and support. But I actually thought this diagram, if I was just limited on time, is probably the best one to try and help you understand what we're trying to achieve. In the past, we've always had linear thinking. It's been about extracting, making, using, disposing, a linear process where basically it's about putting products into waste, end of sort of use waste. And what we're trying to do now is rethink that in terms of a sharing economy. Think about products that where you can extend life, or you can reuse or repurpose or refurbish. How do we make sure that we create recycling processes which are either closed loop recycling or basically open loop in terms of cascade? If we can achieve those goals which 8001 set out, we can minimize the inputs and we can minimize the loss or the amount of waste that's created. It's a powerful tool to help you understand how you can improve as a business. And as my 15 minutes is almost up, I just wanted to kind of prompt you to think even more. If you think about this changing world we live in, who would have thought a decade ago that the world's largest taxi company has no taxis? If we think about large movie houses that have no cinemas, if we think about software vendors that don't write apps, the world is changing. Circular economy is about challenging your way of thinking, making you act differently, making you more responsible in terms of the impact you might have, making sure you as a business really are economically successful. And in being successful, you minimize the impacts you have on the environment. And as I said at the start, and I really do mean it, I really want to make sure this is a conversation with you, the delegates here, and it's not a monologue of just 15 minutes of me talking to you. So if you have questions, if you feel that BSI can help you improve your business, my email address is on the screen, and I look forward to receiving your email. So thank you for that.
Wonderful speech. Thank you, Mr. Townsend, for suggestions and giving us understanding of the work and guidance. 非常谢谢 BSI Mr. Townsend 的演讲。And now we would like to welcome everyone back to the international seminar. 非常欢迎大家回到这次的研讨会现场。 那么 I would like to remind everyone that we have a Q&A area on the side. You can leave your comments or your questions. We'll be answering them at the end of our discussion. 我们在这个网络上的这边有一个 Q&A 的区域，欢迎大家以 panelist 的角色帮我们提出问题，或者是任何的comments 都帮我们留下来，我们在这个研讨会的最后会帮大家一起来做解答。And next, Australia is full of natural resources, and therefore a circular economy is critical to ensure future prosperity. 澳洲拥有非常丰富的天然资源，而政府呢，更是在积极的推广循环经济，让这个现有的资源可以创造更多的价值。因此，我们要欢迎来观赏这个澳洲办事处的商务处的 Tom Yates. Our second speaker is Tom Yates, who is the manager of circular economy investment at Austrade. 他是来自于澳洲贸易投资委员会循环经济投资处的 Tom Yates.
大家好，我是汤Yates。Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tom Yates. I am the manager in Austrade in Sydney for the circular economy. And I'm delighted to have been invited by PIDC and the Ministry of the Economy, along with a number of other distinguished speakers, to address you all this afternoon. My presentation is going to be divided into four major parts. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about the bilateral relationship between Australia and Taiwan. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the circular economy landscape. Thirdly, I will talk about the range of government assistance programs that are available. And then I'll talk about the important range of opportunities that are available for Taiwanese investors. Next slide, please. So in terms of the bilateral relationship, I won't spend too much time on this, but Taiwan and Australia have a similar population. From a business perspective, we're in similar time zones, with Sydney and Taipei only having a 2-hour time difference, less in summer, and Taiwan's GDP is about a third of that of Australia's. But Taiwan remains a most important bilateral trading partner for Australia as our 12th largest trading partner globally. You can see the figures here for two-way trade, but importantly, we've had a long and established two-way investment relationship, which has been in existence for many, many years and is important. People will ask, why Australia? Well, many people might not realize that the Australian economy is the 5th largest economy in the Asian region. Until COVID-19, we've had continuous economic growth. We have a AAA credit rating by all the major 3 credit rating agencies. And importantly, many Asian countries have used Australia as a strategic base for exporting to other Western countries. Let me explain a little bit about this. Japanese companies in particular have used Australia as their first Western or English-speaking marketplace before branching off into North America or Europe. And there are many successful examples of this. And of course, we have a growing population. In terms of priority sectors in investment, Austrade in a COVID-19 environment has set 8 major priority sectors, of which the circular economy is the newest one that we have, but it is a high priority for reasons I'll explain in a moment. So how much waste do we produce? We produce about 67 million tonnes of waste. That compares to about 32 million tonnes of waste with Taiwan, but we've still got over 1,000 landfill sites in operation in Australia, and the bulk of our waste is in commercial and industrial waste. Next slide, please. So in terms of how much waste do we have continuing, we only recycle about 55% of our waste. Taiwan recycles about 66%. We send 40% to landfill. Taiwan now only sends 1% to landfill. And we'll be dealing with 61 million tonnes of waste by 2030. Next slide, please. In terms of waste generation management, you see the bar chart which highlights the major sources of core waste. You can see that in construction industrial materials, in organics, in paper and cardboard, but also in terms of waste management measures. You can see on the bar chart here, we are increasing our recycling, but still a large amount of our waste goes to disposal, and we have one of the lowest energy recovery rates in the OECD. So what are the factors that are driving these huge and comparatively recent changes in Australia's circular economy? The 2018 China government's introduction of the sword policy meant we could no longer send unprocessed waste streams, plastics and paper, to that marketplace. We also realised that only 1/3 of our recyclable waste streams are transformed into commercial products that can be reused. And we only spent 200,000 in 2017, I should say, only 200,000 tonnes of waste was sent to energy from waste facilities. So the government has responded quite quickly to these measures. I'll talk about our Federal Environment Minister Lee's announcements and some legislative announcements shortly. Next slide, please. So what does a circular economy landscape look like? We do have a developed circular economy industry with strong local partners such as Cleanaway and Visy. Visy is very active in the paper and cardboard recycling place. They're well known internationally in that space as a manufacturer. But we've also had a number of European companies that have been very active in this space for many, many years. And I'm sure that the audience today would know Remontis and Veolia. So given that the circular economy was a new priority sector for us in Austrade, the Australian Trade and Investment Commission, we commissioned a waste sector investment analysis report. That's just about finalised, but we determined from that report that the sectors that offered the greatest growth potential in our circular economy were plastics, where we only recycle 12%, energy from waste, and e-waste. Next slide, please. So in plastics, there are a lot of emerging opportunities. We've got substantial scope to improve our plastics recycling, and we really do need help to do that. Just to keep up with the amount of plastic that has been banned due to the changes in the export market, we are going to need a 150% increase in our plastics recycling capacity, and I might add, in a short amount of time. 27% of our local governments, or city governments to put this in a Taiwanese context, no infrastructure in for the collection of plastic wastes. So there are a number of market entry opportunities for Taiwanese investors to capitalize on in terms of upgrading pre-existing material recycling facilities to co-partner or establish reprocessing facilities in the east coast of Australia. It's Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, where we have considerable volumes of waste, and also to think about collaboration in R&D and introduce new technology to create upcycled plastic projects. But there's no question that policy reform and government co-investment will transform the investment of our environment for our circular economy in the short term. Next slide, please. So energy from waste offers a growing pipeline. We've got 8 projects that are now operational in construction, reasonably large capex. We've got 2 major projects underway in Western Australia, 4 proposed projects over in the eastern coast of Australia, and we're seeing market entry in this sector through additional capital investment, through alternative waste treatment for example, in southeastern Queensland, and for example in Western Australia, which is a major mining state, in establishing closed aluptar treatment facilities. So most of our tires off construction equipment is buried in mining sites, and from an environmental perspective, that's no longer acceptable. So international technology and capital is well placed to support this pipeline. E-waste is really an emerging niche opportunity. I won't go too much into this slide. You can see on the left-hand side here, we produce about 140,000 tonnes of electronic waste a year, but we are interested and we are starting to develop an Australian lithium-ion battery recycling industry, and we're interested in collaboration from international investors here, and we are also interested in establishing technology for photovoltaic panel recycling. Next slide, please. I think what is most striking about the Australian circular economy environment at the moment is the very strong government policy support measures. So importantly, the second point is that in August 2019, a decision was made by the Council of Australian Governments, that is all state and federal governments, to establish a timetable to ban the export of waste plastic, paper, glass and tyres, while building Australia's capacity to generate high-valued recycled commodities. And the second bullet point, the National Waste Policy Action Plan sets the overarching direction for a priority action on waste management and recycling in Australia until 2030. The ban on the total export of waste plastic, paper, glass and tyres is one of the most ambitious national targets included in this action plan, but has been agreed to by all state governments. I should also mention that the Commonwealth Government has a variety of initiatives to co-invest in critical recycling infrastructure with state and territory governments and industry. In the last month, the government committed $190 million to a new recycling modernisation fund, RMF for short, that will generate $600 million of recycling investment and drive $1 billion transformation of Australia's waste and recycling industry. But importantly, in the last point, last month, the introduction of new Commonwealth waste legislation to formally enact the government's waste export ban and encourage companies to take greater responsibility for the waste they generate, from product design through to recycling, remanufacture or disposal, was introduced, and that sets some rather more formal targets which we will need to meet. Next slide, please. So I won't spend too much time on this. This is the waste export ban timetable. PIDC members will note the 1st of July 2021 ban, initially on mixed plastics, and then the 1st of July 2022 ban on single resin and polymer plastics. And so all these bans will come into effect by the 1st of July 2024, and we have a very short amount of time to do a lot of work in the circular economy. Next slide, please. State government policy measures. This is a busy slide. What you need to know is all state governments are taking the circular economy and recyclables very seriously. They've got a number of measures which vary depending on their geography, in place, but I'll leave you to read this slide later and move on to the next slide. In terms of government funding and support, very briefly, government funding and grant support is strong in the circular economy sector, with the federal government committing overall $146 million in grants to cover innovative plastics recycling solutions, as shown by the creation of the Cooperative Research Centre Program Scheme, the Australian Recycling Investment Fund, and the E-Waste Product Stewardship Program. That's rather a mouthful in English, but importantly, last financial year, the state and federal governments provided grants totaling almost 500 million Australian dollars. There are a couple of other federal government agencies that have additional grants programs available. They are the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, which has a $200 million grant program to an innovation fund providing capital growth to clean tech solutions, and also ARENA, which is the Australian Renewables Energy Agency, has committed $92 million worth in funding for new projects in the areas of renewable energy, bioenergy, and energy from waste. So the state government grants cover areas such as community engagement, industry development, infrastructure support, and transportation costs. So there is a lot of money potentially available for Australian companies and also in collaboration with international companies to get involved in this exciting and fast-changing circular economy sector. The key stakeholders in Australia, I've already mentioned the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. I've already mentioned the Australian Renewables Energy Agency, CSIRO, which I'll come to very shortly, the Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organisation, which is our ITRI equivalent, has been doing a lot of research in this area. I won't cover this next slide because I've already spoken about this, but the important point for Taiwanese potential investors and partners is you will need to work with state and local governments if you're going to be successful. These are a couple of infrastructure funds and lead managers which are international, and I've already talked about the existing domestic industry participants. Some of the new technologies available from Australia. Australia invented green steel. This was an invention by the Centre for Sustainable Materials Research and Technology. And also they are working on a program to transform e-waste into components as a commercial operation. So, and this centre, along with some of the programs the CSIRO are doing, have established partnerships with a number of companies, both in Australia and overseas. But we're also looking for new partners to collaborate with our interesting technologies in the circular economy sector. I mentioned the CSIRO report. I invite you to have a look at that. But the CSIRO studies have found that Australia is lacking in infrastructure in the reprocessing, repurposing, and remanufacture of waste. So that was some pretty important conclusions from that report. Some quick observations on the marketplace for potential PIDC members and investors. The existing players in the Australian marketplace in the circular economy have a strong interest in partnering. But new entrants to our market need to have strong offerings in terms of technology, expertise, and capital. Some new international investors have tried to come in and go it alone in our marketplace. That really hasn't worked because you really do need in this sector to partner so you can understand the approvals process and also understand social license. I've spoken about the CEFC and ARENA already, but the state governments, other industry players are keen to engage and support circular economy projects. Importantly, there are positive investment opportunities in the circular economy available in Australia. We welcome investment in projects as well as partners to collaborate on research and development. Now, where you can go for more help locally is Austrade Taipei. or the Australian Commerce and Industry Office in Taipei has an office. Lydia Liu, who is the president, is on this WebEx that provides a list of services that the Austrade office here in Taipei provides. I won't go into these, you can read those later. And for further information, I would invite you to contact Lydia. Her contact details are there, or alternatively myself. And can I thank PIDC and the Ministry of the Economy for the opportunity to address our Taiwanese friends today. 多谢谢你. Thank you.
Tom Yates for the speech for us to understand the policies for the government for pushing circular economy. 我要来谢谢 Tom Yates from Austrade， 他来让我们了解两个国家在这个政策推动循环经济的部分。And as of now, we'd like to welcome everyone back to the seminar. 欢迎大家回到我们研讨会的现场。And we'd like to remind everyone that we have the Q&A area. Please leave your comments and your questions, and we'll answer them at the end of this section. 在最后的时候，我们将会进行 Q&A， 所以欢迎大家在 Q&A 区帮我们进行提问。那接下来呢 we would like to invite Fairphone. Fairphone from Netherlands is bringing the circular economy to the electronic industry by encouraging reuse and repair of the phone. 荷兰的 Fairphone 除了公平手机出名之外，他们也透过延长产品的生命周期，达到了这个循环经济的理念。接着就是第三位讲者，我们邀请荷兰 Fairphone 资深机构工程经理 Oscar Chang. And now here comes the third speaker today. He is the Senior Institutional Engineering Manager from Fairphone, Oscar Chang.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you online today. I am Oscar from Fairphone. It's our pleasure that has this chance to join this event, especially thanks to the invitation from PIDC that have this opportunity to share our experience with circular innovation and product development. Okay, let's start to introduce a bit more our experience to you. Fairphone is a company that challenges the status quo of the industry. We show the possibility even in the struggle competition smartphone marketing, it's still possible to fair to the earth and to fair to the people who make them. From responsible material sourcing to advocating for workers' welfare, we share all we resolve freely and set new standards for the entire industry. Some people may know Fairphone from 2017. The Greenpeace named Fairphone is the world's greenest electronics manufacturer. Or last year, 2019, when we launched the new model Fairphone 3, Fairphone 3 became the only one smartphone in the world to be awarded a perfect iFix 10 scores for repairability. Now maybe you already can find some differences for our origin. We are calling for change, raising awareness like sustainable materials, caring working conditions, right to repair your phone, provide more examples as Fairphone to be a model. In the end, we want to create more followers from the industry. We have 4 pillars of change, making long-lasting products, both hardware and software, with fair material and working condition. What does it mean for Fairphone about circular economy and innovation? Innovation that includes modularity, repairability, upgradability. We know both circular and economy need to go together in order to drive impact and affecting a more sustainable product while affecting as well the marketing. For circular resources, it needs to keep at their highest value for as long as possible. We focus on product longevity, both software and hardware, as the main goal. Long-lasting design support to slowing down the cycle. That's a key strategy. We also grow together with the different steps of circular innovation. From Fairphone 1, only a few employees, but already all spare parts available online and starting recycling campaign for Fairphone 2 launch a first modular phone. In Fairphone 3, we improved the modular design and expanding the marketing scale to prove we can stand by ourselves, not like an NGO. Next, I want to discuss more examples of longevity design in Fairphone, like Fairphone 2 has supported software over 4 years. In Fairphone 3, I think we also will support us same as Fairphone 2. And both Fairphone 2 and the Fairphone 3 are the modular phones is easy to repair phone by users. According 2 weeks ago, we launched a Fairphone 3 Plus. It's caring for the customer voices to upgrade the camera performance and using more sustainable material on major structural parts, and still in the same size as Fairphone 3. Fairphone 3 users can only buy a new camera module and upgrade their phone by themselves. Everything we did is connected with the main goal, long-lasting design, support to slowing down the cycle, make users keep their phone as long life as possible. I think PIDC is a perfect place to discuss recyclable materials. Let's discuss more about this topic. From Fairphone 3 to Fairphone 3 Plus, the phone average recycled plastic up from 11% to 41%. And the most important is successfully use 50% of recycling plastic on major parts like this model. Personally, I think it may be the only smartphone to achieve this goal at this moment. 50% is a big achievement. I want to share more how to implement the recycled plastic into product to provide some differences point from my observe. At the beginning, to develop a recycled material, the material suppliers are too familiar with the same idea as usual of bottom-up design, just reference to some material TDS directly, not ever used on some products, and focusing on how to recycle waste and blend material to match the referencing specs, but did not have the specific application from end user, even not yet discussed the details with the potential users. Actually, it's easy broken the future chances if some issue happen not out of expectation. The users might think it's the limitation on recycled material, but actually it's just lacking the right communication before the trial run. We need to change our mindset to top-down design thinking, to think how to successfully imprint the recycled material from high-level scope, make a clear risk assessment of choosing material from different dimensions. For example, what the goal that we want to achieve, 30%, 50%, even 100% of recycled material. What the project timeline, 3 months, 6 months, even 1 year, just a case studies, is totally different concept. And what the technical specs need to reach from the material side to product side is most important. For example, in the smartphone test requirement, we need pass over 1.2 meters drop test and over many times. It's quite difficult. So if we can learn more about this information early, then we can know how to design and develop the right material for this product. And in another side, what are the material limitations? As we know, the recycled material may be more sensitive of heating or temperature. So did you need any improve or modify in tooling side or even in the design side? What are the design tolerances of product that could be adjusted? So we can compromise many different risks in the same product. It's very important. And In the other side, what our manufacturing technology will be used, one-shot parts, double injection, even insert molding parts. It's a totally different concept when we choose a recycled material implement in the product. You need to think that early. And the most important is many consumer devices, they have many post-process will be applied like painting, decoration, and other printing process. We also need to think early. Did it have any impact from material side? Yeah, it's quite important. Just to summarize 2 points of conclusion. First, change our mind of recycled plastic from 2-dimensional, cost, performance, to 3-dimensional. What the goal of sustainable material should have the same weight with cost, performance. It's not a supplement topic. It should focus on major and high-level thinking. Second, step into someone's shoes. We need to work together and reach the successful goal. As I mentioned, make a clear risk assessment from different dimensions. It's impossible to rely on one side to finish it. If it has a successful formula, I think it should include rethink your strategy and the position of marketing, and redesign your product how to make more tolerances for new possibility, and develop a recycled material to fit in your product. In the end, the main point of a rethink about the circular economy, that the brand's responsibility is to use their design and the innovation abilities to include more possibility of sustainable materials. Future for Fairphone. Now we have around 150K year capacity, modularity concept, sustainable material in product, and we are also work with the tier 1 operator, and we hope to provide unique user experience to our customer. So what we can do together? We really hope to create a strategy system in Taiwan, use Fairphone as a platform for proof of concept, and share our design learning and encourage more collaboration. And we want to be the team with you, and we are very encouraged to discuss more future possibilities. Change is in your hand. Thanks.
Indeed, change is in your hands. Thanks, Oscar Chang, for sharing his concept and his successful model. 非常谢谢 Fairphone 的 Oscar Chang 帮我们分享他今天的理念以及成功的案例。And we'd like to welcome everyone back to our international seminar. 欢迎回到我们研讨会的现场。Lastly, through the tech development by Chengya Resources Technology Corporation, it allows us to use the byproducts from manufacturing solar panel to be commercialized and reused for the steel industry. 国内的企业代表今天是成亚资源科技，他们所研发的技术让太阳能产业制程中的细泥呢，这个副产物可以资源再次利用，并且也连接了2个产业的供需，等于说是台湾循环经济典范。Allow me to introduce the chairman of Chengya Resource Tech, Jeffrey Chen， 带您来观赏成亚陈煌志董事长的演讲。
大家好，我是成亚资源科技董事长陈煌志。今天非常荣幸受到受邀中心的邀请，来跟各位分享成亚资源在循环经济的一个实际案例以及成果。那么成亚资源这家公司是在6年前，亚邦国际科技与成大永续中心以及资源工程系所的团队共同组成的一家专门从事有关循环经济相关领域的一个公司。那么我们主要过去的产品，我们把工业、太阳能产业以及半导体产业 在生产过程所产生的含细污泥，很成功的经过了再设计、制程上面用一个比较合适的方式，把这样过去的污泥转质变成钢铁业可以使用的一个升温的材料。那么在这个过程当中，我们认为把这个 A 产业半导体或是太阳能的废弃物，把它做成 B 产业，也就是钢铁业可以用的一个升温材料，取代了进口的细铁。那么整个过程里面，我们达到了第一个零废弃，好，在我们的这生产的制程里面没有再产生其他多余的废弃物。另外一个是减碳的效益，因为我们的这样的产品取代了进口的所谓的这个细铁，好，在这个钢铁业来使用，也让这个细铁的生产的这个矿山上面的一个这个开矿的这个程度减轻，啊，所以它也有一个非常大的一个减碳的效果。那么第三个，因为我们的产生的细锭的产品又比细铁来的便宜，所以也造就了使用这个细锭的这个企业，啊，它能够取得比较低的材料的成本，好，这是第三个产生的效果，好，也因此有这三个以上很明显的一个综合的效果，那我们的这个产品在市面上得到了很大的重视，好，那我在去年中经院举办的第一届循环经济的所谓的授奖上面，我们很荣幸在跨界整合的这个领域里面得到了中经院第一届循环经济的银奖。那成亚资源在做这个过程当中，我们认为把这个 A 产业的废弃物变成一个 B 产业的资源物，本身你必须对原料材料必须相当有研究。第二个，你对于制程的采用也必须有一定的理解，才能够找到最适化的制程。第三个最重要的是，做出来的东西要能够产品化、规格化，而且末端的使用者他能够接纳。所以有这三个主要的一个重要的过程，整个的再利用的一个概念上，要透过很好的一个再设计好的一个这个执行，才能够达到将刚刚所讲的三个主要的层面都能够兼顾得好。那在过去的几年验证下来，我们已经造就了我们的客户使用我们的产品使用的非常习惯。那也因为这样子，我们甚至可以说，在台湾，我们把这个细污泥做成细锭，它变成是一个新的产品，然后甚至呢，现在其他的国家也能够来反而效之。借由细锭的这一段的循环经济，我们所投入的经验，我们发现到接下来还有一个非常重要的任务，就是太阳能板这样的一个太阳能的所谓的材料的模组，它里面也有相当的比重，是使用的是细的晶片。那这样的细的晶片，将来要在处理的过程里面，如何去回收它，能够让这样的细的晶片不是一个废弃物，所以我们就开始去考虑到整个太阳能模组将来在回收的如何资源化的这样的一个重大的议题。因为我们都知道，在这个地球，再生能源这不仅是一个现代的趋势，而且几乎是很多国家它都非常重视的一个能源的来源之一。那么阳光跟风力，风这两个因素几乎是取之不尽用之不竭，所以太阳能的一个发电，我们认为未来不仅是过去的这10几20年来的发展，它可以说是接下来世世代代永远要在发展再生能源里面很重要的一个项目。那所以在这个太阳能发电里面，太阳能模组在未来10年到20年，等到它现在的这个产品的寿命到的时候，它就面临到很多要回收的问题。那么我们目前在第一个阶段能够 考虑的方式，一个再设计的概念，就是第一个先优先把这些太阳能模组先做到有效的分类，而不是说一次性的我们都把它破碎以后去做掩埋或分化，而是如何利用合适的制程，将每一个太阳能模组的相关的材料都能够予以适当的分离，然后呢，让他们到下一个所谓的二次原料的市场继续再于使用。这样的一个阶段很像我们的这个当初的细锭的开发，就是把切削下来的细的污泥变成一个钢铁业的细锭。那我们也是第一个考虑是先把太阳能的模组的所有的相关的材料都以正确的分类之后，那么铝框它也是有价钱的，然后呢矽晶片，然后呢玻璃以及这个背板等等，都让他们能够在后面的资源化过程能够有价的再利用。不过毕竟这样的一个处理模式并没有完全符合到说我们将来是不是可以100%再去应用它这样的一个境界。因此我们认为有一个非常重要的一个任务，就是应该要开发太阳能模组新的材料，而这个新的材料必须有一个很重要的要素，是它是很容易拆解、很容易回收、很容易再利用。那我们认为随着科技的进步，这个是相当有机会的。那我们目前也和工研院的材化所以及成功大学这些研究单位积极的在研发新一代的材料、新一代的制程。我们希望将来太阳能的新的模组，它不仅可拆解，而且它能够予以被利用、再使用的几率是能够再提升的，而不是说只是做一些低阶的去化。如果在未来几年之内能够有新的太阳能模组材料的开发，那么它就又会产生另外一个新的商业的机会。我们在这个目前太阳能模组都是以它的一个传统的模组的方式的话，都是以20年、25年以上的寿命，可是它都不容易拆解，它都是一次性的使用。那如果我们能够回到刚刚所讲的新的材料的运用的话，它基本上它就不是一个20年的使用，也许对于一个这个系统服务的供应商来讲，它提供的可能就是一个服务，它提供的就是一个电的服务那它的这个模组呢，不见得说都是一次刚性的建制，它一次就要20年、25年。那么这么一来，就会产生新的商业机会。也就是说，太阳能模组的商业模式是不是也能够借由新材料的改变而提供一个新的，譬如说以租代购由这个系统商他们自己去做最佳的化的运营，这样子的话就不用说在电站的这个设置的过程都是一个一次性的投入而已，而是由后面有能力的供应商或者是服务商他去做这样的一个整合性的服务。所以在这个任务当中，我们认为台湾有相当好的机会，也利用这个机会跟大家来共享，就是说太阳能的模组未来绝对是每个国家要面临的一个棘手的一个工业的废弃物的问题。所以我们现在过去利用的这个成亚资源，在细污泥变成细锭的这个循环经济的这样实际的案例，我们目前也在做一些超前的部署，希望能够先于其他的国家，把这个太阳能未来的模组的资源化能够做比较好的一个设计，以及形成一个新的商业模式。那么我们可以从细污泥变成低阶使用到一个取代钢铁业升温产品细铁这样的一个项目，以及把这个太阳能模组里面有关于细的晶片，我们要把它分离出来，然后予以再利用。这两个想法都是把 A 的废弃物变成 B 的资源物的概念。其实更进阶的一个想法是如何把 A 的废弃物变成 A 的资源物，那这样就真的做到所谓的摇篮到摇篮的境界。那么我想在循环经济的这样实践过程，这个一定是将来最终极的目标。 所以再设计的能量是非常重要。怎么去找出对的材料，去找到一个可以去化的路径，然后去形成了一个可行的商业模式。在这样的发展过程，我们非常高兴得到了这个 BS8001 这样的一个指南，能够尤其在循环经济的指南来协助我们。那么中小企业它基本上有很多多元性的接触跟业务，会碰到很多循环经济里面有机会去实践的机会。那么 BS8001 它其实是一个非常好的工具，它其中有几个主要的诉求，从摇篮到摇篮，或者是所谓的机能性的服务，一个新的商业模式，还有其他非常多的要素在里面可以供参考跟借鉴。那么我们成雅资源透过跟BS8001 的一个使用，这样的一个指南来使用，我们也得到了自我的一个省思跟自我的一个检视，所以让我们在推展循环经济的过程里面的步伐会走得更加稳健。最后，我要利用这个机会，特别要感谢塑胶中心举办一个这么具有意义的循环经济国际线上论坛。我们都知道，循环经济的推动是一条非常长远的路，需要包含我们个人、周遭以及全体国民都应该共同去重视它的一个议题。那么在循环经济的推动上面，我们知道它基本上不是一触可得的，它需要不仅政府，还有所谓的企业，以及到每一个家庭个人都要能够具有这样的观念，去共同实现。那地球的资源也非常的有限，那么我们如何在这个有限的资源之下，能够为人类去破坏一条仍然能够可长可久的一个生命共同体也好，或者是一个大自然的环境也好，然后让我们的下一代能够永续不断的生生不息的传递下去。所以再一次呼吁，对于循环经济有热心以及有理念的每一位好朋友，我们也欢迎您随时可以跟我们成雅资源联络，提供您有关于循环经济任何新的想法与诉求，让我们一起手携手，共同来为这个家园、环境、地球而努力。谢谢。
非常谢谢陈雅陈黄之董事长的演讲。We'd like to thank Chenya's Mr. Chen for sharing his successful experience and expertise with us. Welcome guys back to the seminar. 欢迎回到研讨会的现场。And now we'll be taking a 10 minutes break. We'll be returning very shortly. All of the speakers or their representatives will be joining us for a live discussion. 现在我们即将进行中场休息时间，将会有10分钟的休息。那稍后呢，讲者会来到现场，或者是以远端连线和我们一起回答大家的问题。休息一下，我们稍后回来。
Do you know? The increasing of global waste generated is accelerating the destruction of the earth. What can we do to help the land under our feet, the ocean in front of us, and our next generation? How can we turn this waste in front of us into treasure? Many small and medium enterprises in Taiwan decided to go green, creating green products and lead to the new road of circular economy and sustainability. Moreover, the green miracle is actually in our daily lives. When it comes to the food containers that we use every day, GreenPad has created a PET material for environmentally friendly tableware. After the PET material reached the crystallization temperature, the construction will be completed and very strong. It can be drop-proof and high-temperature resistant, replacing the melamine tableware that we are doubting. It can be toxic-free, energy-saving, low-carbon emission, and reduce waste of resources and be able to recycle. Besides, Good Life Design has made an environmentally friendly ceramic boutique with the philosophy of green and sustainable. Good Life Design insists that each tableware should be handmade. Turn remaining marble and stone into environmental-friendly stone ceramic material, giving rebirth of marble waste stone powder in Hualien and make it into quality goods made in Taiwan. For clothing accessories, EcoMax Textile has created the recycled products of waste fishing nets. After successfully challenged the recycling and drawing of the PET bottles, and turn them into towels, socks, gloves, and other products, EcoMax targeted the large discarded fishing nets. They get on with the R&D and manufacture of waste fishing nets recycled fiber. Only after a long and complicated decontamination and desalination process can the discarded fishing nets enter the production line. In order to produce fine fibers, EcoMax altered the machine and created a very small mesh for yarn making. Hope to provide quality clothing and help to solve the serious marine environmental pollution problem. ProBlue International Corporation protects the environment of the ocean with its action. They converted the collected marine plastic waste into raw materials through technical operation and made into unique green products by the designers. Marine plastic waste could be turned into clothes, bags, and sunglasses, which give them a brand new life. In terms of home storage, China has been moving toward a green and sustainable direction. It has developed the technology of biomass material and strive to protect mountains and forests. In order to invest in the recycled materials, Charter sets up a material research and development unit. They invest wood flour, corn flour, bamboo flour into mixing PLA and heat-resistant CPLA for mass production and storage products. In the future, Charter plans to invest in research for the materials of shrimp and crab shells, local agricultural waste such as corn, pineapple shells, and white bamboo shoots. Hope to develop a brand new material. In terms of edutainment, Pulley Paper has created its environmentally friendly paper products. They developed a unique paper-making technology that mixed the farmer's rice husk with the paper pulp to make a storytelling material. In order to present the diversity of the paper products, Pulley Paper also incorporates with the white bamboo shoots fiber, banana leaves, and forage into the paper pulp, which not only gives customers choices, but also brought the usage of the crop resources waste to the forefront. Wenmin Fountain Pen adheres to the trend of environmental protection and sustainable development, conveys the new value of the 60-years-old brand through the creating of sustainable stationery. They introduced the styrofoam and waste plastic PET bottles collected from the seaside into the stationery, convert them into the new pen body. Wenmin Fountain Pen also uses recycled paper pulp in the design of packaging cartons. From pen to the packaging, Wenmin Fountain Pen shows the green and sustainable competitiveness of the brand. The SMEs in Taiwan continue to innovate their green thinking to alleviate waste and pollution problems. At the same time, it also pursues the environmental protection concept by reaching low carbon emission. Hope to connect the awareness of different industries and consumers. We are all part of the earth, implement the concept of circular economy and sustainable innovation into our lives. Strive to the win-win results of the economy, environmental protection, and society. Taiwan will be seen by the world.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the seminar. 欢迎大家回到研讨会的现场。刚才休息过后之后呢，可以看到我们现在已经有3位的讲者已经来到了我们这边。Welcome everyone back to our seminar. Our guest speakers and representatives have joined us here. 讲师在我们线上还有现场都逐渐就定位了。那我们要介绍的第一位讲者呢，是澳洲循环经济投资的 Tom Yates。他会将在这个线上和我们一起做线上的对谈。那接下来我们看到我旁边的这位是 Peter Fu，He is the General Manager of the BSI Taiwan， 也就是我们第2位讲者，他的代表是英国标准协会台湾分公司的蒲树胜总经理，欢迎。And another speaker has arrived here. His name is Oscar Cheng. He is the Seminar Senior Institutional Engineering Manager of Fairphone. 也就是第3位的讲者是荷兰 Fairphone 资深机构工程经理 Oscar Cheng。张先生。
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you online today.
Welcome, welcome. And finally, we have周醒辉的 representative from 成亚 Resources Technology。最后呢，这位是国内企业代表成亚资源科技的周醒辉协力。
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to join us. It's Parkson from Chenya. Welcome to join us with the seminar.
Thank you all for joining us today. 谢谢大家今天的参与。I'm wondering if Mr. Yates from online can hear us. If he can hear us, we'd like to say hi to Mr. Yates as well.
Yeah, thank you. Greetings from Sydney, Australia. It's quite a warm afternoon, but absolutely delighted to be invited to participate at this panel session with so many other distinguished guests from Taiwan. I'm very glad that technology works so I can talk to you all the way from Sydney. So it's terrific. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. It looks like it's quite sunny over there, and we're hoping that you have a great day over there. And now we will begin to start our Q&A session by asking you our first question. We have gathered some information and questions and comments from our participants, so let's begin. Mr. Yates, our first question is for you. Our participants would like to understand that regarding the recycling technology collaboration for industries in Taiwan and Australia, what kind of collaboration can we expect, or what kind of collaboration could there be in the future? 那我们在这边的参与者很想要知道的就是对于这个循环经济的部分，台湾企业以及澳洲的企业能够有怎么样子的合作机会？
Thank you, Stella, for your question. I guess the 3 major areas that the Australian Trade and Investment Commission are focusing on is basically waste plastics, energy from waste, and e-waste in strong demand in Australia. But that doesn't exclude the other waste such as glass and also tire recycling. I've mentioned that as well, and paper recycling as well. I think, as my presentation indicated today, we have a major challenge in Australia. But if you would like to know more about the Pacific technologies or specific opportunities, I would invite you, and also to learn about the Australian marketplace, I would invite you to contact our office in Taipei at the Australian Commerce and Industry Office. Lydia Liu, I know, is on the website today, and part of our job at Austrade is to really provide potential international investors with contacts, and also with properly qualified partners that can actually, in Australia, that can actually talk to anybody interested, as well as the normal things that investment promotion agencies do, such as provide information on our regulations, and also the general business environment in Australia.
Thank you, Mr. Yates. Allow me to summarize his comments. 刚才 Mr. Yates 有说了，除了像是我们刚才有提到的废轮胎，还有像是玻璃、废纸回收等等，其实这些都有非常多的机会在澳洲可以去执行。那他也很欢迎大家可以到澳洲办事商务处的网站上。网站上有提供非常多的资讯，无论是企业还是个人都可以上他们的网站去找寻，无论是像是 contacts 联络方式，或者是他们可以介绍不同的联络的人在当地等等。欢迎大家去他们的办事处的网站上得取更多的资讯。We would like to ask another question for Tom Yates, because since you're already online, and after we ask you these questions, we'll proceed with people who are here with us today. Mr. Yates, we have another participant who would like to understand the closed-loop tire treatment facilities and how it works in Australia.
Can you hear me? I think you can hear me. So, sorry. Yeah, look, I'll just quickly answer that question. First of all, can I thank all the speakers for the really excellent presentations. And I was particularly interested in the contributions from the two Taiwanese speakers today. And I should also just briefly mention that, of course, we talk about standards, and Australian standards historically were based on the old British standards. We've actually modified them to suit our own environment. So those who are learning about British standards will I think, find it a bit more easy to understand our standards. But I thought the comments that Martin made today were very relevant for all of us in the circular economy. Let me talk specifically about the tyre side of things at the moment. I've already mentioned that we have the export bans coming into place by 2024. Australia, as you know, has a very large mining industry, and the disposal of very large construction equipment tyres, which we historically do by landfill, is not very environmentally friendly. So there are a select pyrolysis facilities in Australia that manage closed-loop tyre treatment, turning end-of-life tyres into fuel and black carbon. We are at Austrade aware of companies like Pearl Global, based in Stapleton in Queensland, Green Distillation Technologies in Victoria, with a facility in a regional New South Wales town called Warren, and also there are companies like Lysella in New South Wales that have perfected a waste treatment oil technology process and can process tyres, but they use a water-based, not a pyrolysis process. And I think the comment is that pyrolysis is fine when international prices are high, but the disposal of carbon black remains a problem. And so I think that we understand that the industry schemes and associations like Tyre Stewardship Australia and the Australian Tyre Recyclers Association would be a good place to start. But if any of your attendees today would like to know more about what we're doing in this sector, or more about the opportunities for partnership, because we know we have got to address our circular economy and waste management issues urgently, then please contact the Australian Commerce and Industry Office in Taipei. As I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to Lydia Liu. Thank you.
Mr. Yates， 刚才我们是询问他有关于澳洲当地废轮胎封闭循环制等等的运作，那他当然也有在提了几家在澳洲成功的企业，那他也有说，如果有希望有各式各样的合作机会，或想要向他们当地的产业来做学习的话，一样也可以到他们的网站去做更详细的了解。And now we would like to focus on our participants here at the scene. First of all, 我们想要问的是 Mr. Peter Pu。您好，我们这边有Q&A 的问题啊，主要是想要知道，例如说像这个最新的标准 BS8001 这个标准来协助中小企业，怎么样可以让大家达到这个循环经济模式更成熟呢？
Okay, thank you for your question. I think BS 8001 is the first international circular economy standard. So the whole spirit of BS 8001 is to provide organization with best practice and guidance to help organization develop a circular economy business model, especially for SME. So I'd like to share the most important three slides of BS 8001 so that everyone can quick learn from this standard. I call it as a 6, 7, 8 approach. So you can see the first slide is 6. We could first establish the 6 circular economy principles. As Martin mentioned earlier, yeah, you can see the system thinking, innovation, stewardship, and the collaboration, and value optimization and the transparency. I think most important is the system thinking. We can once we would like to establish the business model, we cannot just focus on the single point because system thinking is very important. We need to have a holistic view for this. And innovation is very important. And another one is collaboration, including the informal with internal or external party. I think this is very key, as Martin mentioned. And the value, the principle is how to keep the value of our product or service. And the transparency, we need to communicate with our stakeholder and to keep any kind of information more transparency to let us have opportunity to establish our business model. So this is the first one. The second one is next slide, right, please? Yeah. Next slide is the 7 concept. We can learn from this. This part is a very systematic guide for me. Yeah, you can see a lot of concepts. For example, the first one is performance economy. How to conversion from product ownership to usage right. Yeah. The second one is by mimicry. How to learn from the nature. Yeah, so we can use such concept and to apply with our product and the service to establish our strategy. So I think the 7 concept is very interesting and important. The next slide, please. Yeah, here have a 8-stage flexible framework. Yes, learn from the 8-stage framework for building a business model. You can see from the first one is the framing. How to design your structure, your organization, and combine with your strategy, your vision, and your resources, your responsibility. Yeah, and to keep the right structure from here. And then you can scoping your organization, your boundary, which product, which service, which organization is you would like to establish the business model. And then you can create the idea. We call idea generation. You can use the circular economy concept from previous slide, the 7 concept, performance economy or biomimicry, yes, to generate your idea. And then you can have a feasibility to evaluate is workable or not. And then you need to prepare your business case, your business plan, including your market evaluation, your market share, your SWOT analysis, and your return of investment, yeah, something like that. And then you need to have a pilot run. Yeah, you have a prototyping to try your business, your model. And then you can develop delivery and the implementation. And the last one is monitor and the review and continue improvement. So this is I call the 6, 7, 8 approach to support SME to build up your business model. So I would like to encourage you to study this standard, to learn and develop your business model with circular economy. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Pu. We were just asking Mr. Pu about how the BS 8001 standard can help the small and medium enterprises grow, and he just answered our question. 刚才蒲董事长也告诉我们，用一个非常简短的方式，让我们了解这个也许比较复杂的一个 standard， 但是有它的3个大重点，也就是6、7、8， 6个原则、7个概念以及8框架。没错，在这个3个重点之下，我们也可以学到非常的多。那当然还有另外的问题，也是在跟蒲董事长，我们也是继续在做一个提问，主要是他们想知道，例如说我们取得的这个查证声明书 BS 8001，到底对于中小企业是有什么样子的加分吗，或者是影响
Okay, thank you for your another question. I think if a local SME can abandon the credible from third parties, circular certification bodies such as BSI to verify your maturity of the circular economy, it will be a key niche for enhanced client trust. I think this is very important. And then we have a more opportunity to establish the relationship with the client, especially this is the international trend. Yeah, after you implement the BS 8001, I think the organization can not only comply with the trend, serve as a niche point, yeah, for entering the international market and become the key client supplier. So, and besides this, I think we can also integrate to our existing ISO management systems, such as ISO 9000, 40001, or our sustainability standards, such as greenhouse gas emission, carbon footprint, and to play a greater synergy in market and bring more business opportunities. So I think that will be very beneficial when you implement this standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pu. He just explained how retrieving the BS 8001 can be having source of advantages and beneficial for your company. 他刚才蒲董有特别说，其实拥有这个查证声明书，其实对于企业来说是可以增加很多的自信心。很多的自信心之外呢，当然也是在国际这个供应链上面也可以。等于也有更有面子，或者是有一个基础，让大家可以更相信 trust， 你要说信任是非常重要的。Okay, next we would like to ask questions for Oscar Cheng, Mr. Cheng from Fairphone. 他们今天也有出现了几个问题想要问您。大概是刚才在这个 presentation 的时候有讲到41%的回收料使用，这是非常 亮眼的数字。所以像是消费者升级或维修手机，到底其实这是怎么处理的？可以稍微跟我们解释一下。让我用英文也稍微问您一下。We're talking about the 41% of recycled materials. It's really a good figure. And how would consumers deal with, let's say, upgrade or repair of their phones through your service?
Actually, Fairphone, we make and sell phones, and also take recycling serious. In this year, in European country, we have a recycling program, hope to recycle 20,000 units of phone. And because actually, in study, 55% of phone can get a new life by a simple repair, like change a new screen or battery. Even they cannot be repaired, we also hope they can take place by the right way. So if you are interested about this topic, maybe you can visit our website. It has detailed information you can share about this recycling program.
刚才也提到了，例如说像是其实手机是有55%是可以透过像是维修或者是回收，可以来做更好的一个运用，延长它的产品生命周期。那除此之外，其实你们很强调就是 easy fix， 就是简单的修改，可以让这个东西越来越长的运用，也就是循环经济模式的一个这个概念嘛。那你们有说，刚才你有说到，特别是在2020，希望可以有一个计划是可以回收
recycling program，
是2万只的手机嘛？哇，很期待。那如果大家一样有任何问题的话，也很欢迎到您的贵公司的网站上去找寻更多的资料。And we have another question from our participants. The next question, they're talking about the recycled materials. Usually it's not the capability of material itself, but the communication with consumers. How is communication a key role in your company?
As I shared in this speech, actually the brand's responsibility is to use their design and innovation creative capacities to contain more possibility for sustainable product or material. And Fairphone use our product to put this possibility is right way and possible. And we hope to deliver the same message to the whole industry and the customer. And on the other hand, work with the supplier as a joint design program. We promise we will stand with our supplier to co-work and for the more sustainable product to deal with and overcome the challenges.
Thank you. We were talking about how working with suppliers could be a way for communication as well, right? 我们刚才有询问到了有关于这个回收料，常常重点并不一定是材料本身，而其实沟通也是非常重要的。那刚才呢，张先生就有跟我们讲说，其实呢，设计创新和这个品牌相对的也是非常重要的一环。那提供这样子的产品给消费者，那当然你在这个沟通部分，我们不只是强调这个新的性能，当然我们可以有像是你们公司可以提供一些零件，让大家可以自己去换，自己动手做，这也是一个很好的一个方式，而不是就是把东西给丢掉了嘛。那除此之外呢，你说的沟通很重要的，像是跟供应链这个部分，你可以从源头开始就做这个沟通，从开始做产品设计，不只是我们公司想要什么，而是可以看这个供应链也是跟他们做一个沟通，我们一起做合作和设计，这样子在这个长远的路上也是非常有帮助的事。Thank you. And of course, we would like to introduce our next participant, who is Mr. Zhou from Chenya Tech.
The situation. So we try to find a new source of the raw materials. Taiwan is so-called the Silicon Island. So many silicon powders or silicon sludges were produced in the semiconductor process. So we try to collect this kind of raw materials to our new material source. Okay, and in the future, we will have the silicon powder from the West PV panels. So that's our solutions or our way to find our raw materials.
谢谢周显令，您刚才说，其实每个月需求量是有3000到4000吨，不过真的可以提供的是确实只有10%，大约400吨左右，
Yes.
所以其实是有一个供需不平衡的问题。那你们试图解决方法也是现在也是像是从国外去寻找这些 raw materials 来提供这个不平衡的这个解决方案，是的。好，那我们接下来还有另外的问题。想要知道的是，例如说从废弃物变成资源物，有时候就是一个想法的一个转念。那这样子技术当然也是非常的需要，但是你们贵公司是怎么样去克服这样子的一个困难？Sorry, let me ask it in English. Sometimes it requires a change of mind to overcome a lot of problems. Did your company ever face these kind of challenges when you're trying to overcome this technical problems or difficulties?
Okay, it's a good question. The difficulty is differ in many companies or industries, but I think they are three in common. The first of all is the basic study to the West, include the properties, the composition, the amount, and the collections. And the second, I think, is the find the suitable or the best market to do the market survey. We don't need to provide the highest, or we don't need to seek the highest price market. We want to find the suitable market to accept the recycled products. That's the second. And the last one is to develop or to find a cost-effective recycling technology. I think these are the key factors to circular economy. And we can use different technology to produce different products, but the challenges will be zero waste production in eco-friendly concept and the profitable business model and promotion to customers. Okay, and we try to convincing or we try to communicate to everyone again and again and again with the zero waste production in eco-friendly concept and sustainability and CSR or ESG images. And most of all, the last is the profit sharing in the whole supply chain. Okay, and we think it takes time and it's hard in the beginning, but it's not possible because we believe we're doing the right things, and we provide the win-win-win, triple win, or not double win. We provide a triple win solution to vendors, to us, to customers. So I think that's our solution to the issue. Okay.
谢谢周显令，您刚才有特别提到要怎么样的去克服这些困难，也有3个非常重要的key points。除了像是，例如说，假设在废弃物部分的话，我们要非常了解这些东西，那也要做一个很正常的一个市场调查，才能了解这些背景，了解您在做的东西。最后一个也是要靠这个 回收有效益成本的这个回收科技，才能把这些东西全部 link up 做起来。那最后你也说，这个有效益的这个沟通这个角色非常重要，才可以创造3赢，而不是只是双赢的一个。没错，非常谢谢周先生。那 thank you all for joining us today. Before we end our discussion, we'd like to invite all of our participants to use a very short sentence to help us conclude our seminar. Let's begin with Mr. Yates online. I know you've been waiting for a while. We would like to invite you to help us conclude our seminar by providing a very short message to all of the participants joining us today.
I think my short message will be very simple. The circular economy is a global problem. We all need to work together for the benefit of the environment. And I should also thank again PIDC and MOEA for the opportunity to participate live today. And can I thank my fellow panelists? And possibly just say to Mr. Chang, I quite agree with your last comments about building a profitable business model in the circular economy. So it's building sustainability in a circular economy for the benefit of all, but it is also ensuring that the businesses have a profitable way forward as well. 多谢谢你。
Thank you, Mr. Yates. Thank you so much for your conclusion. 当然，刚才 Mr. Yates 有帮我们讲了一下，这个现在的环境是全球都在面临的一个问题，因此大家一定要全部一起合作，才能为我们的环境来一同的努力。那他也要谢谢今天的主办单位，来有这个平台可以让大家能够发言，也让大家分享各位的经验，也非常同意刚才周协理所说的，这个我们一定要创造一个所有人都可以 being beneficial 的一个环境，以及我们做事的方式。And now we would like to invite Mr. Peter Pu for your comments.
Okay, thank you. It's great to have this opportunity to learn and sharing with you. Especially thank you for PIDC have this seminar, and just like the topic of this seminar. I think this is very important for circular economy and sustainable business model. This is a key issue from global warming, and we need to cooperate with each other together and to solve this challenge. So thank you very much. 我谢谢所有线上的成员参加这个活动。那我非常感谢 PIDC 还有经济部有这个机会，让我们可以分享一些国际上最好的实务做法，然后我们大家可以一起努力来找出一些方法来解决全球暖化这个问题。必须端赖我们大家一起努力。谢谢大家。
Thank you, and we'd like to invite Mr. Chang.
Okay. Again. Since PIDC have this chance to introduce our experience today, and I think we can suggest one point is out of your old box, change your mind to think different from the sustainable product or society, to define your marketing strategy and your company roadmap to the product. So we can build a better future for together. Yeah. 感谢今天受邀中心跟中华经济部的邀请，让我们有机会在这里分享一些我们在产品开发过程的经验。那我只有一点简短分享，就是希望我们能够从不同的角度来看循环经济这件事情从这个永续的社会、永续的环境到永续产品再来重新思考这个公司整个产品的策略走向，以至于产品的发展，这是在一开始相对重要的事情。
Thank you very much, Oscar. 最后我们来邀请周协理陈雅的周协理帮我们来多讲几句话。Please, Mr. Chow.
Okay. Thank you everyone to join us. And it's my honor to share my experience in circular economy and the silicon briquette production experience in the seminar. And actually, we got the BS 8001 qualification last year under the consulting service of PIDC and the support from BSI. And I would like to say, if anyone online, you want to get spotlight, or you want to have a CSR image, or you want to have sustainability development, you can contact the BSI or the PIDC. They have professional and experienced guys, and we got a benefit. It helps us to have a community chance to those who cares about these topics, the company, and we have many relationship is building up, and I think it's a best way to make your company to sustainable development and to have a good connection to those companies or industries.
Wonderful. We'd like to thank all of the participants, all of the speakers and representatives for joining us today. And of course, we would like to thank Mr. Yates for joining us online, for sharing his experience with the government's point of view. We'd like to thank Mr. Peter Poo for sharing the experience for what guidelines and standards we should follow. Also from Fairphone, we know how other countries and other enterprises overseas, how a successful experience should be. And also we have our representative in Taiwan sharing a great experience for us as well. 今天真的是非常谢谢大家的参与我们线上的论坛。我们除了有台湾的企业代表，也有国外的企业代表，同时也有 DSI 这个 standard， 让我们了解如何来 follow 这些 guidelines。当然，我们还有像是澳洲的代表，是从政府的角度，让我们了解政策等等的不同。Thank you all for joining our seminar today. We're coming to an end, and if you want to have the seminar video today, please remember to fill out the survey, and we'll be sending you a link of today's video. 非常感谢大家今天参与我们的线上的研讨会。那如果大家想要得到今天研讨会的影片，请大家帮我们把这个线上的问卷填写完之后，就可以得到今天的这个线上研讨会的影像。Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. 非常谢谢大家。
And Stella, before we go, on behalf of all the panel, I think we should thank you for being such an excellent moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yates.
Bye-bye.
Bye.